Hello, it's Teacher Johnny here, and today I will be doing a broadcast on the three sounds of ED. So we listen and we hear and we see the ED on the end of words. But when we use these words in a sentence or when we say them, how the ending word of the original verb looks is how you will interpret how it's said. So, welcome here, and I just want to say a big hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Johnni Zabka, and this is my profile picture on Hallo, where I teach. You will find links to Hallo down below, and you will learn more information also on my Facebook page. My Facebook group is English 101 Teacher Johnni. So it's a group. If you look it up by that name, you should be able to find it easily. That link will also be down below. So on Hallo, you learn to speak English, expand your English vocabulary. You talk with students, you talk with teachers. It's a great app you can use on your phone. You will learn to improve pronunciation, speak more fluently, and learn to love English and love Hallo. So now let's get into that lesson. Past tense. It has already happened. Past tense. So what we are talking about today is simple past tense. Simple past tense. And how we say words that have the ed added to them. So past tense, if you don't know, means that it already happened. When I have my body here, right? Here's my body. I think of things that are in front of me as the future. They will happen. They haven't happened yet. My body standing here is present. I am present. So future, present. Things that already happened are behind me. And in most cases, we will have those words end with ed. So we're going to talk about just regular verbs that just we add the ed to. There are many different rules to past tense, and there's other words that are called irregular verbs that also, I'm going to type that now. So irregular. So this is a stream. So irregular verbs. Let me show this. Irregular verbs are those words that change spelling or they don't change at all. Like he shut the door. He shut the door yesterday. He shut it. He shut the door. Will you please shut the door? Okay, so when we say shut, he shuts the door. If we just have shut the door yesterday, or we don't add that S, we usually mean it already happened. So please shut the door. He shuts the door. He shut the door yesterday or just now. It already happened. That word doesn't change. It stays the same. So there are some irregular words. So we may not have time to go into those today. I just want to let you know, I know they're there. So don't panic if you don't see them. I'm going to be focusing more on all those words where we add ed to show the past tense. So I am going to be typing and showing you banners and things like that during this live stream today. So here we go, you guys. We're actually doing this video. It's not really a live stream. No. Okay. All right. So we're going to add ed to these words. When we add ed, we don't say ed. I know, believe it or not, we do not say ed. So we actually have different sounds. So that's what this stream is about, the different sounds of ed, and also when we change that ending, what happens and how you say it. Okay? All right, so let's just delve right in and look at some of these. So most verbs have an ed added, and we can see that here. You have rain. We're going to add ed and say rained. Repeat after me when you can. Rained. It just has that D sound at the end. Be careful not to say rained. We call that the tail sound. Rained. We just want that D to end and air to stop right after the D sound. Rained. Now we have the word played. Played. Again, we just have the D sound. We're not saying played, we're just saying played. All right, so this is one way we add the ed to the end of verbs. All right, another one is a word already has an e on it. So we're not going to add another ed to show past tense. We're just going to add the letter D. Now, the sound changes for the word bake. We will go over why in a few moments. But first, let's just add it. So you can see we add a D to the end for baked and lived. Okay, so I want to just look at this first. So in most cases, we're just going to add an ED or a D to the end of words to show past tense. This is a nice general rule of English, American English, which is what I speak. And let's practice a little bit. So you can repeat after me. Live, lived. Start, started. Die, died. Visit, visited. Play, played. Watch, watched. Phone, phoned. Marry, married. Okay, so in that simple past that you see, here I'm going to just kind of pop my face back in here for a second. In the simple past that you heard me say, you might have heard different sounds for that ed that's on the end of the word. And we're going to talk about when you need to know what to say. So that is what confuses a lot of English learners, is exactly when do you say what you say, right? Why does the sound change? Sorry, English is so confusing. I apologize. But I want you to learn these so when you are reading and practicing your English and using that past tense, that you will understand how to say it correctly. All right, so let's get to it here. So I'm going to show you this one. So past tense, when we have ed at the end of a word, it signals something has happened in the past. Easy to spell, but did you know ed has 3 sounds? The ending sound D, T, and the ID. So D would just be like the end of hold, the D. That's probably not the best example. Try mend, mend, mend. Okay, so that's a D sound, right? Now, this is what's tricky, is if you add an ED, things change. Changes that sound at the end after the original verb. So we're going to get into that a little more now. So we have 3 sounds. It's going to have a d, t, or id sound. Did you know ed? You will rarely, I don't think you ever really hear it as ed, as in red. It has different sounds and just looks different than what you say. All right, so let's get into this. 3 sounds of ed. So as I just said, id, d, 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 and t, t, t. Okay, so ed will sound like id when it comes after the letter T or D at the end of a root word. Okay, when it comes at the end of a root word. So root word means the basic verb. like the end word, right? Verb would be an action word. So like melt. Melt, I'm going to type that word for you. So give me a second. If I have melt and I add ed onto that word, right? If I add ed onto melt, this has a T as its ending letter. So that means the ed sound will sound like id. So you would actually say melted. Please try that. Melted. So remember, if it ends with T or D, the verb, the main verb, and then we add ed, you're going to have the id sound. So we have melted here. Mend. Mend is to sew something, to fix it. So if we have mend, this ends with a D. If I add ed to the end of this word, it will make the id sound. Mended. You try. Mended. Very good. Excellent. Okay, so that is the first one. We're going to practice some words together for that id sound. So here we have some words. I want you to say them after me. Melted, twisted, planted, rented, mended, printed, rested, acted, blasted, sanded, punted, salted, landed, painted. Okay, so did you do it? Nice job. So you can use one of these words or a new word that ends with T, a verb that ends with T or D, add that ED and practice saying id after it. So these are some good ones to practice. If you want to pause the video, you can say these words by yourself. Or if you want to back it up a little bit, you can practice saying it after me and get some more practice. All right, so let's move on to the next one. So here we have more letters. I'm going to make my face disappear so you can see all the letters. So if you need to write these down, please do. But let me switch this out for you so you can see it better. All right, so here we have just the ending sound of D. We have this if you have a word, a verb, that ends with the final sound of the root word that's voiced. So voiced means you can feel that vibration in your throat. So most often it's going to be that, B, G, like B, G, J. So you're going to see these J sound, L, M, N, R, V, W, Y, Z, and the voiced TH. So voiced TH is that sound you hear, that vibration you feel for words that have that hard TH sound. I like to call it the hard TH. Many people call it voiced TH, but that. Like when you say that or the, if you really drag out the th, you can really feel your throat vibrate. It's called the voiced TH. Okay, so when you have a verb that ends with any of these letters or that TH blend that's voiced, we are going to just say the D sound at the end. So we want to be careful. So here is something that we practiced in the class today. You want to be careful to make sure that ending D sound has your tongue behind your teeth. That will make that nice end crisp D for you. Be careful not to add more air and bring your tongue back down. We don't want it to sound like duh, the tail sound. We just want to end with the D sound, like warned, warned. You can hear my D, but I'm not saying warned. Okay, that's what we call the tail So be careful teaching the D sound and some of the other hard consonants when you are teaching children or teaching adults. Be careful not to have that after it. I always like to say if it's at the end of a word, just stop the air. Make the D and then stop the air. Warned, warned, instead of saying warned. Okay? All right, so that's what's really hard. So if you're teaching a word that starts with a D at the beginning of a word, I like to teach the vowel sound that comes after it instead of the duh. Because if you have a word like day, I'm just a little tangent off of these three sounds of ed, sorry. But if you have a word like day and you teach the sound of D as duh, new learners might say duh a, because they don't understand that D really doesn't sound like duh. It just has a d. So take the vowel next to it when you're teaching it. Put a vowel there, like DE would be da, da. DA might be da for apple or da for day, right? Day. So they don't get used to saying duh first and then the vowel sound that comes after. So that's just a little tip. Same thing with the letter T and some of those other letters. Try not to do at the tail sound after it. That will really save frustration for you as you are teaching someone and then also for that learner. All right, so that's my little tangent. Sorry, back to this. If you have any comments on things, please leave them down below. If you want to know what any of the words mean that I'm introducing, you can ask questions down below as well. And as always, subscribe. Hanging out with me on YouTube. It's a great time. All right, so here we go. Let's get back to this lesson. I'm going to share my screen here for you. So let's talk about some of these words. One of the words is warn. Warn. So when we have warn and we look at the past tense, like warn is like to tell someone to get back or to be careful. Adding ed, we would say warned with that D at the end. We would not say warned. Warned. We see that ed, but we just say a D because it has the N. It has the N. Okay, warned. Now let's look at a list of words that we can practice. Okay, let me get my face out of the way. Bye, face. Okay, let me get it out. There we go. Okay, say this after me first, please. So I'm going to say the word, and then you can repeat it after me. Make sure you use the D sound at the end of these words without saying duh after it. We don't want grilled duh, bang duh. We just want to close that D and finish it off. Also be careful not to make it sound like a T. That tongue should be behind your teeth and you should have a nice D. So let's try it. Here we go. Grilled, banged, smiled, saved, shelled, drilled, spilled, yelled, changed, filmed, ganged. All right, how'd you do? Did I go too fast? If I did, I'm sorry. You can pause this video and say them yourself, practice them yourself, maybe record yourself on your phone or have someone listen. And you can always reverse this and you can listen to me say it again. So most of the time when you add D to the end of a word to make it past tense, such as in save plus D, it will sound like D. So saved. So remember, we had that rule where you can add a D if the word already has an E on the end. So here we have changed, saved, braved. You can tell you're going to have that D sound. We're just adding a D. We're adding the D to make it past, and it will have that D sound. All right, so great job, you guys. Here we go into the next part. This is a longer video than I've done lately, but thank you for hanging out with me. Okay, the next one is the T. All right, there it is. The T sound. So when we have this T sound, I'm going to make my face a little bigger for a second. When we have the T sound, most of these letters, it's easier to have that T sound because you're going from the formation of one sound straight into a T. So, for example, if you have a word that ends with an F, like huff, see how my teeth are on my lip? Huff. Going into that past tense of ED, we go right into a T sound. Huffed. Huffed. Okay. Now, if it has a K, so remember I said in most cases when you add a D to the end of a word that has an E, right? Like change. So remember, if we follow that original rule, if it ends with a G and we add an ED, this will just sound like a D. So we did that for words like changed. Okay. So now we have a word bake, like I will bake some cookies. It has the K. So if you notice here in this rule, in this one, there's a K at the bottom. You will see these letters. I wish I could circle it right now for you. So there's a K. So letters C, F, H, K, P, the unvoiced TH, like the end of math, with those words have a softer TH. You do not feel your throat vibrate. A CH, the ch sound, PH, SH, and WH. Okay, when you have those blends where CH is making either the K sound or a ch sound, you're going to say t after that T. So ED will sound like a T when you have words like that. So we're going to go through some examples to help you practice. Okay, so this is just a rule that can help you remember. If you remember that words that end with this, the verbs that end with these sounds, you will be great and you'll be able to do this. It will take practice. It will take lots of practice. Okay, here we go. So let's look at our little panda. We have our cute panda here. Okay, we have the words huff and puff. Huff means to bring air in. Puff means to take it out. Huff and puff. Puff. I think that's the right way. Maybe reversed. Either way, when you have an F on the end and you add an ED, it makes that T sound if you follow the rule we just did. So we would say huffed, puffed. You try it. Ready? Follow me. Huffed, puffed. Nice job. All right, another one of those letters is the word or letter K. So on the end of this word, we have the word knock, like knock on a door, right? Okay, so when you have a K at the end and we add an ED, it makes the T sound. Knocked, knocked. He knocked on the door, knocked. It's a real quick sound at the end there. We're not going to say knockta, and we're not going to say knocked, knocked. He knocked on the door. All right, so that's how it sounds. So those are the rules that I showed you. And let's look at this one where we can practice some words. I want you to say them after me. Masked, jumped, fished, skipped. I'm going a little too fast. I'm so sorry. I just realized I'm going to do this again and slow down. If you're here watching, I want to say thank you for hanging out with me. This is a longer video, but it's great practice. So ready? Let's try that again, a little slower. Masked, jumped, fished, skipped, asked, camped, blocked, checked, kicked, dumped, honked, and limped. All right, this is hard because we need to practice getting our mouths ready, right? So what I've found is that a lot of times if you are not a native English speaker, some of these sounds are things you've never done before. So don't get down on yourself. Get your face warmed up, get your mouth warmed up, and just practice those as much as you can. So let's read this together. You can read it after me. He huffed and he puffed and he blew the house down. Okay, it's your turn. He huffed and he puffed and he blew the house down. Now try it all by yourself. Did he huff and puff? Yes, he did. All right, great job, you guys. All right, so let's go into some spelling rules. So spelling rules, they still, we have spelling rules for past tense words, and sometimes we add another letter onto the end. We double that consonant. So one thing to remember is that no matter if the consonant is like 2 P's, 1 P, whatever it is, you're looking at the last letter, and then when you add that ED, the sound is going to be what sound you make based on that last letter. So in the word stop, when we have that rule where we are doubling that ending consonant, you're still going to have that T sound, stopped, because stop has a P at the end. It has a double P when you add ED, so you're going to say stopped. So when you have a P, it sounds like a T. When you have a word like ban, even if you double that N, we are only going to say a D sound. Band, band. Okay, so when you look down below, it has that rule where you don't have to worry about doubling that last letter. And just for sound, we're concentrating in this lesson on how you would say these things. Sometimes we see that double consonant and we think, uh-oh, I have to say it different. So that's why I mention it here. When you add that ED, what is the last letter before the ED? That's how you're going to know what sound you need to make. What sound you need to make. So that's my point here. You want to look at that last letter, whether it's that double P or double N, a double T, whatever it is, you want to look at it. And then when you add ED, that's going to be the sound that you need to make. So you're going to know what sound to make based on that letter. Okay, so even if you don't double it, right, if you don't double it, it's what we just practiced. It's everything we just practiced. So these are just some spelling rules. Don't worry about those right now. We are focusing more on how to say things. All right, now here is the next one. So this is just like one step beyond what we just did. If you have a verb that ends with a consonant plus Y, and you're adding an ED, you have to say goodbye, Y, right? So I like to say that when I'm teaching kids. Goodbye, Y, and hello, IED. You're going to take the Y off, and you need to replace the Y with an I. And you're going to do IED. That's a spelling rule for you to know. When you see a word that has IED on the end, that is past tense. You know it's past tense from the context, from what you're reading, and you see this. You want to say the long E sound, like carried, carried. We don't say the I at all. is just replacing that Y, and we're going to say carried. Carried. We do the same thing for study. If you notice, when you have a consonant Y, in this case, it already sounds like an E. Listen, carry. Sounds like an E on the end. Carry. Now when you take the Y away and you add IED, you still have a long E sound. You just have a D. Carried. Carried. Same thing with study. Study. And studied. Try that. Studied. Studied. All right. So good job, you guys. So this is what we did last. So studied, carried. So when you see these, you will know how to say them. All right. So what do you think, you guys? That's a big, long lesson. It's like a 30-minute lesson. It's a 30-minute lesson. All right. So here I have one more thing I think to share. So did you know in British English, the L is doubled at the end of a word when adding ed to show past tense? Did you know that? So if you are used to British English, and I have to apologize, I spelled British with an XH. I don't know what I was thinking, but this should say American English, British English, not British English. Not sure what happened there. Oops. But American English, we just have one L. We don't double it. In American English, if you were over here and you took a spelling test or were writing something, in British English, however, when you add an ED, they do double that L if it's at the end of a word. So it's still said the same. That's what I wanted to point out here. You're not going to say traveled for American English and traveled for British English. They're both traveled. They are both traveled. Okay, so that's what I wanted to point out here. All right, so you guys, great job listening today. Thanks for hanging out with me. This was one of those extra long videos. So the reason I wanted to post this video was to give you an introduction to the next class I will be teaching on Hallo. You will find those links down below, or you can join the Facebook group, and I have links in there as well. And you can ask me questions or comment down below. What kind of things do you want to see next? So this was a new way for me to record. I actually really liked it a lot. I find when I have the headphones on and I'm just sharing the screen like over and over, I start to get into that preschool voice. I'm sure you've heard it. It sounds like this. Yes, you're doing a great job. Like it sounds like I call it preschool voice, when actually I really talk like this. So my name is Johnni Zabka. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And I hope you learned something new today. If you did, mention it down below. Be happy to hear from you. Thanks and have a great day, everybody. See you next time. Bye.